Here's the facts I want to read you. We're going to get down to some hard stuff here.
Yes.
Dear Art, I'm sure the good Father would agree that belief in God must come from one's own faith.
Yes.
Then it would it not be true that faith is necessary for one to believe that demons also exist? I personally believe that his God, meaning yours, Father,
yes,
or any God, does not exist. To me, it's all a fairy tale. So, would my non-belief of the angel and demon, God and devil, heaven and hell dogma, mean that I am one whose body cannot be possessed? And if so, what does that say about that particular theology? So I guess, number one, would somebody of his sort be somebody whose body could not be possessed?
No. His body can be possessed. His belief or disbelief is no guarantee his body won't be possessed or can't be possessed. But that doesn't mean it will be either. It's the profile. We try to create the profile of the possessible person, Art. We've tried it since 1970, and there is no profile.
There is no profile.
No, it's a random thing happening.
Rich, poor, good, evil.
Male, female, homosexual, heterosexual, educated, uneducated. It doesn't make any difference. That's not the norm, apparently. We don't know what the norm is. It looks to us like completely random choice. Art, between you and me and the Holy Spirit, I know very naughty people. I really do. In New York, I mean, people who have morals that I can't share. I know mafia people. I've come across my share of these people in many walks of life, but they're not possessed. They're just very naughty.
How actually, it's a very good question. There are, as you point out, many naughty people. It's a very kind word.
Yeah.
How do you delineate between the very naughty and the possessed?
Well, the very naughty are usually terribly honest about their naughtiness. A high-class call girl, who's simply a prostitute, will tell you honestly, when she lets her hair down, that she is that. A mafia soldier who is on vacation over here from the West Coast because he's done something over there and he's in retirement for the moment over here. I'm citing people I know. They'll explain exactly what happened. In fact, one of my first contacts as a priest in New York was with a mafia soldier who had been shot up and needed absolution and anointing, or afraid he was going to die. But that's one kind. The other kind, the possessed kind, is something very different. And there's the various stages of possession, but it's a very different thing. The phenomena is different. The behavior is different. The things surrounding them are different. The atmosphere, the smell, the behavior, the look, the language.
Father, does possession come upon a person slowly, in stages, or does it come all at once?
Slowly and in stages. It's like any addiction. It becomes, for instance, we're dealing now with a new generation art, really. There are always 20-somethings or 30-somethings. Very few 40s. They're in the 20s and 30s, and the situation is generally the same as the young man who came to me about 15 years ago and said, look, Father, I wanted such and such and such and such and such and such. And I made a pact with the devil. I said to him, if you really are Satan, and if you have power, give me this. And he said, I got it. Now he said he won't let me go. And he did it slowly, and then I inquired into how it happened, and his mind got used to the idea of asking for help and for really a leg up. And he got the leg up in various places and succeeded tremendously in his profession. And then he found that his mind was locked and his will was locked, and he wasn't free. He wasn't free to love, and he wasn't free to choose, and finally he wasn't free to die.
Father, there are many people who have at one time or another let it cross their mind.
Yes.
Let me have this, let me succeed in this, let me do this,
Yes.
And I'll sell my soul, whatever.
Yes.
Now, how does one know whether one actually has made a pact with the devil or one has just had a fleeting horrid little thought
Yes.
that went away?
No, it's a very good question. There's this art, and those to whom it has happened will know exactly what I'm talking about. There is this lock they find on their will, and there's the control of their mind, which they lose. It's not that they go all hairy or they lose it, as we say, but it is that they find that their mind is restricted in certain ways, and their will, they cannot do certain things. They cannot exercise compassion. They can't desire certain things. They can't really desire their wife or their husband, if the woman is in question. It's the peculiar lock on the will, and that's generally what sends them, the ones that are saved, sends them running for a priest or an exorcist. What happens in some cases is that they go further into it, and they're completely programmed and controlled.
Well,
and then you have perfect possession, out of which I have never seen any person emerge.
Never?
Never. I haven't seen. Now, I'm only 76.
So it is not, sir, the classic possession that we all recall from The Exorcist. Not that, but a more perfect...
It's a perfect possession. You see, the classical form is the person who makes themselves very obnoxious in their behavior. And they're really like the child. When a child is hungry, an infant who can't talk, they bang their heads on the ground. They throw themselves around. They protest. They're saying, I'm hungry, or I'm dirty, or I'm thirsty. That's one form. Something can be done about that. When they're perfectly possessed, they don't ask for any help. They eschew any help. And
how many people, Father, do you think are in that condition? Let's just talk about America right now. Forget the rest of the world.
On a percentile basis?
Sure.
A minimal crowd. Minimal set of people. By minimal, what do I mean? Well, we're 260 million, isn't it, or something like that?
Yes.
I'm trying to make a proportion between the number I've known and the general population. I suppose about 10 million.
10 million.
If I am in my mind, I'm calculating the proportion of people I've been with. Field.
Well, here's a tough question for you. Would we generally, if we could see these 10 million people,
yes,
would we find that they are powerful, the successful, the...
Yes, we would. None of them are obscure. None of them are failures. None of them are without respect and means. A lot of them are in high places. And as Charles II said about his ministers, the higher they go, the higher they climb, the blacker their bottoms get.
But that's the very worst possible scenario for the world. These are the people who are shaping policy?
Well, that is difficulty, that we do find those in charge of things. And when you do, I've seen the following take place. In a certain bureaucracy, which I won't name, a very well-known bureaucracy of a worldwide nature, not merely American. People by men and women of ordinary means, some of them Hindus, some of them Christians, some of them Jews, some of them nothing at all, but with a natural, what I know, for want of a better phrase, civic virtue, isolating somebody who's obviously perfectly possessed and getting rid of them. Because somehow or other everybody agreed, there was a consensus that this person was in alliance with something that militated against our best instinct as human beings. I've seen that happen. And not for any religious motive either. Just, consciously religious motive. Do you understand what I'm saying? That they felt uncomfortable in the presence of this person. And
yes.
also saw that direction of their actions and decisions, which they had power to take within the bureaucracy, was evil, humanly, just humanly. I've seen that happen. But yes, there are people in very high places, as well as in normally high places, who are perfectly possessed. There's no doubt about that.
And they will never be saved.
As far as my experience in life goes, Art, I don't doubt God's grace or God's greatness, God's power, but neither do I doubt or belittle the power of Lucifer, because he is the prince. Satan is something else. As you know, that it's not the same being. Satan and Lucifer are different, one from the other. But I don't belittle the power of Lucifer. He is the prince of this world, as Christ called him, and he has his kingdom. And at the present moment, he reigns supreme in the middle plateau.
Well, if Lucifer has all of these perfectly possessed people that are in effect in league with, have made a deal with him,
right,
then why does Lucifer from time to time do this horrible thing and possess the otherwise totally innocents who have not asked for in any way any sort of deal with him?
Well, nobody is possessed against their will. You always say yes. Even the semi-possessed, even the obsessed, which is the stage prior to obsessed, to possession, they say yes. You are never possessed against your will. You're never obsessed against your will. You open a door and you say, well, who are you? Or put a foot in and let me look at it. It's partial invitation. Now, but what must be stressed is that this doesn't happen to everybody who's just barely naughty. Do you understand? I use the word naughty to cover all sorts of human malefactions.
I'm sure.
But it doesn't follow. It's a random thing as far as we're concerned. But there's one more thing which we must stress. And it's not a cause for pride on our part, but it's this, that Lucifer, it can be intensely stupid, as Satan can also, as all demons can be. They're extremely limited in their knowledge. They don't know everything. They're not all powerful. In fact, they have merely been conceded certain powers by God. And that is one of the mysteries of this creation, why evil spirits have been given power. But that they have, that they reign supreme on the middle plateau, there's no doubt about it.
Father, I recently saw a movie called The Craft. I don't know whether you've ever seen it.
I've heard about it.
It is about 4 young women who decide they will call upon dark spirits to do their bidding. It's quite well done, calling on dark spirits from north, south, east, west.
Yes.
It's a horrifying movie. And to back it up, I've interviewed a number of people who suggest that young teenage girls, particularly young teenage girls, are powerful. That they frequently have things occur around them where poltergeist problems have occurred. They've occurred around young teenage girls. Now you have these 4 girls actively seeking out the dark forces to do their bidding. Is such a thing possible?
Oh, yes. And it's an everyday occurrence in our experience. Now, it's not that everybody does it, or a lot of people do it, but as far as happening art, it's an everyday occurrence.
Back now to Father Malachi Martin. By the way, Father, WABC Radio in New York, the big one there in New York, is having discussions with us presently about possibly getting on the air there. It's the Big Apple. And for 2 Saturdays recently, we sent them programs that we had done in the past, which they ran from, I think, midnight to 5 o'clock in the morning. And one of those programs was one of the ones I had done with you.
Oh, thank you very much.
So you were heard widely there in your own city.
Thank you very, very much, Art.
At any rate, I considered it one of the best, and so we sent it along and they ran it. I thought you'd want to know.
I certainly do, and thank you so much. That's excellent.
All right. Father, is magic real?
The best answer, the most accurate answer is yes, there is a magic. There is a magical system which is real. Yeah.
All right. As an example, again, I refer to the movie The Craft. In that movie, it showed there was a dispute between a couple of the young ladies. One grabbed a hank of hair from the other, and they began doing these dark spells.
Right.
And in the movie, this girl who had this magical spell cast against her began to lose all her hair, began falling out. That kind of magic, Father, real, tangible things that can be done to other people.
Yes, that can be, under certain conditions, can be real and effective and horrible. No doubt about it. It can.
So it can be, in effect, foisted off from one person to another using dark forces.
Yes, under certain conditions. And one would want to outline those, but in general it is that both the hexer, the speller, the person doing it to somebody else, must have an arrangement, be in league with,
yes,
have a pact with,
yes,
demonic forces, and the person affected must lack protection, because we all need protection.
And what protection is there?
To put it in human language, on this level of understanding art, it is the arrangement whereby I, at least in general, my life trend, and in the way I behave, I follow the dictates of what I call my conscience, which is really my angel, because we're all assigned an angel to protect us. Because on this again, in this context, there is always danger of being attacked by demonic forces, either directly or indirectly. And we have an angel, a guardian angel, we call it, or him, or her. There's no sex involved, so we use him or her or it. We always have an angel who can protect us. If we forsake that angel, and the general trend of our life is in the very opposite direction, then we are liable. There's no doubt about that. And I can't tell you, I have one whole filing cabinet full of letters from people who are victims of that.
You are now 76.
That's right.
76 years old.
Actually, truthfully, I'll be 76 on July 23.
On the 23rd.
Yes.
Oh my. When I talked to your secretary,
yes,
the other day, she said you were, at the time we talked, at an exorcism.
That's right.
You're still doing exorcisms?
Oh yes. At the present moment, it's usually directed. That is, that I'm in charge of an exorcism. I'm not usually doing it myself. I don't need to, because there are 2 or 3 going on at the same time. And I decide what must be done, interview the people, and assign it, and then observe, and at times step in to correct something. It goes on continuously, because since I started this work in the United States, that's about since 1970, it's now 1997, 98, coming into it.
Yes.
The incidence of possession, and therefore of exorcism, has increased between 750 to 800%.
Wow.
It's enormous, and this is only in the northeast corner of art. In the northeast corner. The increases, and then the amount of covens that have sprung up, genuine coven,
yes,
is enormous.
When you say coven, would that be, for example, Wicca?
Yes, there are Wicca covens. These are... A coven is a general term for a group of people who are linked together by one main point: adoration and service of Lucifer.
Many people involved, Father, in Wicca will tell me constantly that they are not of the dark side.
Oh yeah, there is a white Wicca, as they call it, and it's really nature worship and that sort of business. You know, it's innocent in that sense. It's a reversal to the gods of nature and the gods of nature as such. And that, of course, has its own liabilities as regards belief in God itself, But as for the White Wiccans, I know the chief Wiccan in Long Island. She's a very respectable lady, and she holds classes teaching people how to enter Wicca, White Wicca, and they will have nothing to do with any other form. But that's not what we're talking about really. It's a nature worship, and a lot of people are in this. Many who are in this because of disillusionment with religion, Judaism, Christianity, Catholicism,
yes,
Presbyterianism. You know what I mean? They've had it up to there, as we say, with a form of religion that they find this consoling. And they love animals, and that's what it is. They never have sacrifices of animals, dogs and cats and birds and horses or anything like that. It's a nature worship. And see, if we use the word paganism, it has connotations for the ear that are sort of bad. You know, these are what the ancient Romans and ancient Greeks and all those people practiced.
Is it as dangerous for one's soul as even the darker forms of Wicca?
No, it's not. And I've met many Wicca people who are led out of it by sheer devotion to nature and by finding out that the beauty and the truth around them must mirror some greater beauty, greater truth, more permanent beauty and truth elsewhere. And that's God. But it all depends. It's very hard to give an accurate answer to your question, because it all depends on what graces have been offered you. Has God entered your life and have you refused Him? Do you understand me? Have you rejected an invitation from God?
Father, I don't feel I've ever had one. I don't doubt a creator.
Mm-hmm.
However, I have no tangible proof, and I am the kind of person who has a very difficult time believing in that which I cannot prove, and I'm constantly striving to prove and to learn through every avenue I can manage, some of them probably very less worthy than you can imagine. But I'm constantly searching and looking, and yet I've been unable to make that leap of faith, and I don't know that I've ever received a specific invitation. How does one know?
Well, I'll tell you. Somebody has said, and it's a way of entering into this. Somebody has said that if I say to you, and I'm not me and you're not Art Bell, so we're two mythical people, but if I say to you, look, I want to love you, that's the beginning of love. It's the beginning of love. If I say, I'd love to believe in you, it's the beginning of belief. In fact, there's no Jewish theologian or Christian theologian who would dispute the fact that if you say that, it means that it's a grace in itself. It's a grace in itself.
Just to say the words.
Otherwise you'd be feckless. You wouldn't bother. You wouldn't bother your head. You regard it all as piffle, as nonsense, as garbage. And there's this about it too, Art. There's this about it also. That you can be drawn along for decades by the wish that one could get grace, and one doesn't, apparently, consciously, mentally, rationally.
Right.
And all the while, you're getting grace. Because grace is something of which you're not conscious.
Does it come upon you as a slow stage possession would?
That's right. It does. And it comes upon you in this, that when you find that, for instance, the fire is in you, that once upon a time tended you to less good action, tended you to less pure motives, that limited your original fits of anger, of lust, of gourmandise, of jealousy. You find those fires dying down, and a certain pacific sense entering your inner being, then there's something taking place.
But is that not a natural progression of age?
No.
No?
Pastoral experience teaches me, and I'm long enough at it, that on the contrary, in my native language, Gaelic, the Dolanishuk, the Dolanolcus is a famous phrase. You're getting older and deeper into sin. The older you get, the worse you get. Pastorally, it's not the way it is art. People do not mellow and mature and get gentle and calm and compassionate. On the contrary, they don't, except some people do.
Well, then maybe there is some hope for me, because surely those things are occurring to me. Those things you described, as I grow older, are occurring to me.
I know they are. And what God must do in your case, my case, in every case, when he wants them, he must purify the rust in you. Whatever erroneous thoughts you ever had, whatever excesses we committed when we were younger, and more stupid than we are at the present moment.
Oh, believe me, there were many for me.
Oh, well, we all have them. There's no human being who, if they're honest, doesn't say the same thing. But the difference between the men and the boys is that there's that, somebody has said, and it's true, between the ages of 35 to 55 or 65, it's a corridor of youth. And at the end of that, and towards the end of it, we begin suddenly to realize certain lessons we have learned, if the grace of God is working on us. And you see, God has no form.